I think I was always interested in finding a medium of self-expression.
Jiayang Fan is a staff writer at The New Yorker magazine.
I always wanted to better understand my relationship to the world.
She writes long-form articles and tweets about all sorts of topics.
One of the great things about working at The New Yorker is the wide range of things I get to study and then write about.
And she's remarkably unfazed about facing barbed comments online.
Part of being present on social media these days is tolerating, at least being witness to a certain amount of trolling.
But in 2019, something changed when a steady stream of negative comments became a torrent.
This seemed on a different order of magnitude. It was incessant.
And what did they say?
Dog trader, Jiayang Fan, calling me someone who is not even fit to be fed to the pigs. I mean, there's something almost heartbreakingly crude about that dehumanization.
I'm Sam Judah with BBC Trending, and this is Trolled, our series focusing on online abuse. This episode is about the systematic attacks aimed at journalists like Jiayang Fan, who's pushing it out, and the political forces that might be driving the campaign.
I grew up in Chongqing, China, until the age of 7, and I am a U.S. citizen right now.
Politics isn't Jiayang Fan's regular beat, but in 2019 she visited Hong Kong.
I went to Hong Kong to cover these widespread protests that engulfed the city over demands for greater representation and democracy.
The protesters were confused about her identity, and she tweeted about it.
I said something along the lines of, being a reporter here of Asian heritage makes the color of my face a liability.
It was just an ironic observation about the complexity of being an Asian American reporter, exactly the kind of thing a journalist would tweet. But online, things got weird.
It was mistranslated as my Chinese face is a burden. I am ashamed of my Chinese face.
That's not what she meant, of course, but on social media, nobody seemed to care. She became a target for Chinese nationalists who'd missed her point and began hounding her with messages.
How can you betray your motherland? How can you sell your soul? I was just shocked that so many people would devote this much attention. So that was, unsettling.
At first, it was unsettling. But Jiayang Fan had become a target, and the trolls stuck around.
The abuse would come in waves. The first wave came after my reporting on the Hong Kong protests. And another wave came after I took to Twitter to plead for my mother's medical care in the midst of the pandemic in New York City. My mother was already in a very fragile condition in a facility.
Jiayang Fan's mother had motor neuron disease, and lockdown restrictions at her medical facility threatened to leave her without the help she needed. In desperation, she tweeted a picture of her mother with a plea aimed at the local authorities in New York. The request to allow her mother's carers to remain was granted, but the trolls were watching, and the photo provided a perverse form of ammunition.
A new narrative was invented to say that my mother was being kicked out of the facility for being Chinese, and that her daughter was, in a way, killing her.
If that wasn't enough, the trolling didn't stop when Jiayang Fan's mother passed away in January last year.
It was just seen as further proof of my traitorous nature, my murderous nature. So many of the messages that the trolls sent me have been an act of dehumanization, calling me someone who eats the ashes of her mother.
Jiayang Fan wrote about her experience in The New Yorker, and you should look it up. It's a beautiful article. But that's not the point of this story. You see, Jiayang Fan isn't alone.
I've always wanted to become a journalist. As a kid, I started publishing articles describing things around me, and people would write to me. And I felt like I was making a small impact on the world around me.
This is Mei Ling. That's not her real name, and this is an actor's voice. She grew up in China, but now works overseas. She's asked us not to say where, and she joined a networking group for Asian journalists working abroad.
It was just a place to discuss your stories and mentor younger journalists.
Mei Ling is not a political journalist, and the group didn't discuss politics. But one day, a news site in China published an article describing it in a way she didn't recognise.
It accused me and the other journalists in the group of backstabbing our country. It said we were plotting against China. I was surprised and also really scared.
So it was just one article?
There was one article, but it was republished all over the internet. And on top of that, a trolling campaign started on English social media as well. If I post a YouTube video about food, I get comments saying I'm a dog and a traitor, that I will do anything for fame. Dozens of them every day, sent by strange people.
Strange people, Mei Ling says. And that tallies with something Jiayang fans started to notice about many of her trolls on Twitter.
The faces associated with their Twitter accounts, they're always white. They look like stock images from a catalog with very American names like Tracy Smith or, John Brown. That's when I noticed that they seemed to be coordinated and seemed to be bots.
For Mei Ling, it wasn't just bots using inauthentic images. The picture looked even stranger. Her own identity was being cloned online.
On Twitter, there were fake accounts using my name, my image, pretending to be me. They would all post at the same time. It felt organized, as if it was being conducted by a machine.
Two women, both journalists of Chinese descent, both working overseas, and both singled out by bots online. What's happening here? Thousands of miles from New York, someone has a theory.
My name is Albert Zhang, and I'm an analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Most of my work focuses on disinformation and state-backed information operations.
ASPI is an Australian think tank where Albert has been looking into this phenomenon.
Starting in 2020, ASPI published a bunch of reports looking into human rights violations by the Chinese Communist Party in the Xinjiang region. And so because of these reports, we've received a lot of public attention. And specifically, one of our analysts, Vicky Xu, started getting harassed by what we thought were suspicious accounts on social media.
Albert's colleague, Vicky Xu, another analyst at ASPI, was born in China too. She's also faced harassment online.
A lot of the accounts targeted her appearance. They called her ugly. They also called her a traitor, then made actual threats. So both calling for her to kill herself or threats of sexual violence as well.
Albert started digging and trying to understand what was happening. He studies trolling networks he believes operate from within China, and he developed a hypothesis.
So the headline of the story really is that the Chinese Communist Party is seeking to silence women, particularly academics, activists, and journalists of Chinese descent who report on China, both to censor their critical reporting about the Chinese government's policies, but also to control how China is portrayed to the rest of the world.
That idea is at the heart of ASPI's research, that the Chinese government itself might be playing a role in all this. For now, Albert sees it as a likelihood, not a certainty.
So from the publicly available information, we actually have no evidence to tie these social media accounts directly to the Chinese government.
ASPI are making their inferences based on patterns they've drawn from the data. For one, as Jiayang Fan pointed out, a lot of the troll accounts use Western names and what look like stock photos. But Albert says they mostly post to a strict Chinese schedule.
Accounts in this network tended to post during Beijing business hours between sort of 9 to 5. They also posted during the work week and were less active during Chinese public holidays, such as the Labor Day holidays in May.
The trolling seems to tail off at evenings and weekends, suggesting that whoever's initiating the posts is doing it as a job, not of their own volition. And there are other clues too.
Many of the accounts had previously actually posted preferred narratives for the Chinese government.
And it would be unusual for groups of individuals to be posting in such a tightly controlled way.
Yeah, that's right.
And these same accounts are now being used to target high-profile women of Chinese descent outside the country.
That's right.
A few weeks after our interview, Albert sent me news from the US that seems to make things clearer still. In April, the US Department of Justice announced it had brought charges against 40 Chinese police officers based in China, accusing them of creating thousands of fake social media accounts to harass dissidents living overseas. We don't know if those accounts targeted Jiayang Fan or Mei Ling, but the US authorities say most of the officers were part of an elite task force, which they dubbed a troll farm. I wanted to understand how this was playing out inside China, so I sat down with Ankur Shah, a China analyst at the BBC. He spends a lot of time looking at Chinese media and the conversations that unfold online. He started by drawing a picture of the social media landscape.
So social media works completely differently in China. Foreign apps like Twitter, Facebook, Google, these are all completely inaccessible unless you have a VPN. In China, they have their own whole set of apps and social media tools. So you have Weibo, which is like Twitter. You have Weixin or WeChat, which is kind of a messaging app, but it does a lot more than that. You also have Baidu, which is the search engine similar to Google.
Okay, and what's your take on this story? What do you make of the theory that the government might be behind the trolling?
So it's difficult to establish whether this is government-sponsored trolling, but what is for sure is that these journalists have been the subject of a lot of attention in state-run newspapers like the Global Times, which is this very prominent nationalist news outlet. So in the case of Jiayang, the Global Times, which is this nationalist newspaper, put out an article in around September 2019 that was very critical of her reporting on Hong Kong. It's put out articles talking about her relationship with her mother.
Right, but negative news articles aren't uncommon. Do you think there's any relationship between those negative articles and then these thousands of abusive messages we're seeing on Twitter?
It's difficult to say, but there is definitely this very complex but crucial interplay between these nationalist state-run newspapers, nationalist bloggers, and the trolling that you've described. You know, we can't say for sure whether it's a causal relationship between them, but they echo each other in different ways. Some of the images that we see, for instance, in a state-run newspaper might be picked up by the trolls. They definitely push quite similar messaging and narratives at similar times.
There's an interesting question about what can be done about this, especially on Twitter, which has seen a notable change of management in the last 6 months. That's something I asked Albert at ASPI about. So Elon Musk famously took over Twitter and has sacked a load of people, whole departments en masse. Is that affecting your work in any way?
So since Elon Musk has taken over Twitter, we've seen the trust and safety team being fired, which was a vital point of contact for researchers in this area to share information with Twitter. Since Elon Musk's takeover, it doesn't seem like the relationship we had with Twitter will be the same.
In the past, Albert was able to report troll accounts to Twitter's trust and safety team, and often those accounts would be shut down. But today, he says he's much less likely to get a response.
We're also concerned about action once state-backed information operations have been identified on the platform, whether Twitter will do anything about it in this new environment.
We put that concern to Twitter's press team. We also wrote to the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., asking for their comment on the idea the CCP was behind the abuse sent to journalists like Jiayang Fan and Mei Ling, and about the US authorities' allegations it had created a troll farm to intimidate dissidents overseas. In each case, we didn't receive a response. Regardless of the specific actors behind this, we know that the trolling is real and that it's women who are being disproportionately targeted. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this seems to be gendered?
I have thought about this, and I think that Chinese patriarchy remains to this day, a deep part of Chinese culture. Like the CCP, there's an entire Politburo, all men, and there must be something just particularly infuriating about Chinese women investigating the actions of Chinese men who have been unimpeachable.
Whoever is behind it, and whatever their motivation, is the trolling having any effect? I put the question to Mei Ling. It just sounds really difficult to have to go through. It's almost like someone's trying to bully you out of the online space. I mean, what effect has it had on you?
Emotionally, it's been really difficult. It's created a sense of forced exile. I don't interact with other journalists as much. And I think that's what the people attacking us want, to create a sense of isolation, a sense of abandonment. I've gone to see a therapist to help me deal with some of it. It's been complicated.
Jiayang Fan says that for a long time, she didn't want to admit the toll the trolls were taking. It's a pressure she hopes to withstand.
I'm being trolled daily by hundreds of accounts with really vicious messages. I thought, it doesn't matter that a bot is telling me to go kill myself. It still has an effect on my psyche. And to deny them seemed disingenuous. And my power to resist is very limited, and they are trying to use their power to run me off the platform, to mute me. And that is a dynamic that, as a journalist, as a human, I very much want to resist.
That's it for this episode of BBC Trending. Thanks to our editor, Flora Carmichael, and studio manager, Hal Haynes. If you want to get in touch with your thoughts on this or any of our other programmes, you can email me, sam.judah, that's judah, @bbc.co.uk. Thanks for listening.